live.
Call to order, councillors. Please turn your mobile devices to silent. Welcome to the public forum on Monday, the 17th of March, 2025. Public forum relates to representations from the public on agenda matters before the ordinary meeting of council, which will commence tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It is a requirement that I advise all present that the public forum is being live streamed, and I advise all present that your presence at this public forum is taken as consent that your image and your voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public by our live stream. Recordings of this public forum will remain on Council's website for at least 12 months. In the chambers today, we have Councillor Julie Coburn, Councillor Annette Lawrence, Councillor Ben Pakes, Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Alexandra Wyatt, Councillor Noel Selby, and online we have Councillor Arthur Bain and Councillor Adam Matchett. Staff attending today are Michael Jackson, Acting General Manager, Wesley Trotter, Director of Utilities, Lisa Davies, Acting Director of Corporate and Commercial, Daniel Thorogood, Acting Director, Operations and Planning, Vicky Thomas, Acting Group Manager, Governments and Information Systems, and Talia Randall, our minute taker. We have no apologies for this meeting. I would now like to do an acknowledgement of country. Kempsey Shire Council acknowledges the land of the Dunghutti Nation. We pay respect to elders past and present. We acknowledge the role of emerging leaders to continue to guide us in the future. We acknowledge the stolen generations and the need to change practices to be inclusive. This land always was and always will be Dunghutti land. I now call for any conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts? I would like to declare a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in item 10.4 as I have relatives that live on Trumby Road. No other conflicts?
I do.
Councillor Bain.
Yeah, I'd like to declare a non-significant, non-pecuniary conflict of interest in item 10.3, the rezoning of the Macleay Valley Way, because I have a casual social relationship with the proponent, but that will not affect my ability to make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. We'll now move to the guidelines. The General Manager will now outline the guidelines for the public forum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to address the Council. This time is to be strictly enforced by the Chairperson. Speakers at public forums must not digress from the item on the agenda of the Council meeting they've applied to address the Council on. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the Chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If a speaker fails to observe a direction from the Chairperson, the speaker will not be further heard. A councillor, including the Chairperson, may, through the Chairperson, ask questions of a speaker following their address at a public forum. Questions put to a speaker must be direct, succinct, and without argument. Speakers are under no obligation to answer a question put to them. Answers by the speaker to each question are to be limited to 1 minute. Speakers at public forums cannot ask questions of the Council, Council laws, or Council staff. Where an address made at a public forum raises matters that require, when addressing the Council, speakers at public forums must comply with this code and all other relevant Council codes, policies and procedures. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's code of conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. If the Chairperson considers that a speaker at a public forum has engaged in inappropriate conduct, the Chairperson may request the person refrain from the inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw and unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the speaker fails to comply with the Chairperson's request, the Chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking. This does not limit the ability of a Chairperson to deal with disorderly conduct by speakers at public forums in accordance with the provisions of the code. Where a speaker engages in inappropriate conduct, the General Manager or their delegate may refuse further applications from that person to speak at public forums for such a period as the General Manager or the delegate considers appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. We'll now move on to our speakers for today's public forum. We have 3 items and 4 speakers in today's public forum. First, we have Mr. Lindsay Kay, who will speak against item 10.1, Community Strategic Plan 2045, Your Future and Community Engagement and Participation Strategy. Mr. Kay, ready when you are.
Councillors, citizens, as mentioned in the chunky documents which are part of 10.1, we now have a huge opportunity for change. Not only do we have a new, diverse and dynamic council, we can also look ahead to a renewed leadership. I speak today against this plan because we can do better. This is a document that, as you know, sits at the heart of the entire enterprise. We must get this right. The community wants us to get it right, and the community contain important resources to help us get it right. We can do this by working together and utilising these resources positively. The currently proposed plan does not really embrace this approach, although it pays considerable attention to it. We must ask the hard questions and accept the answers, however hard they are to digest. Questions like, why don't the public engage in larger numbers? Removing the many factors involved here, among the many factors involved here is trust. The community has been poorly served in the past and they know it. How do you restore trust? You acknowledge that there have been mistakes and missteps. As new councillors, you barely have any skin in the game. What does it truly cost you to say that there have been poor decisions made in the past? Not to place blame, but to start the process of healing, a process for which we have very slight resources and need all the help we can get. Let's not tear up the 10.1.1 Draft Community Strategic Plan 2045, but leave it as a working draft until we can do better and together work out and improve the parts that exhibit the old ways of engagement. The surveys. We obviously don't have the means to completely revisit this, but as I have repeatedly pointed out, based purely by participation rate, it cannot be given much weight in decision making. Oddly missing from the data and flow charts was a wholly better subscribed item, the petition against the SRV. The community spoke and were not accorded any weight in this document whatsoever. Perhaps they deserve some feedback under IAP2 protocols. See 10.1.2 Draft Community Engagement and Participation Plan. If, as reported on page 18 of 10.1.1, there is a desire for meaningful community engagement, and if a dynamic two-ways conversation is vital, 10.1.2, why aren't we having one now? You can't answer that, as the rules of this public forum do not allow it. Why? More to the point, why aren't these rules, and indeed the whole slew of the actual impediments to engagement, on the table in the draft documents? I return your attention to trust. 10.1.2 highlights authentic, close the loop, genuine. It was disappointing to read under how in 10.1.2, pages 12 to 14, to see that this public forum wasn't a way to participate and maximise your voice, not listed. Someone remembered it, still existed, and listed it as a way to stay in the loop, 10.1.2, page 18. It is with considerable sadness I review 10.1.1, page 34, and read, become a volunteer. Do we not remember the South West Rocks Visitor Information Centre volunteer debacle? Also, give blood. Where can this happen locally? I would love to be corrected. The best information I can currently find is in a 4 June 2015 petition on change.org to restore it. Donating blood is a great thing and I encourage it. It would be nice if it was easier to achieve locally. If there is any interest, I can list a bunch of stuff related to the listed objectives in 10.1.1, but in some way, what is missing is more telling. Let's fix this. The next survey needs to include more penetrating and open questions. Perhaps the drafting of a new survey could be outsourced to the community. You may recall my big front page sign, "They don't listen." Prove me wrong. Get the community to come with you. We can do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Pakes.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Lindsay, for your input. Specifically around how do you think the general manager recruitment may affect this document over time? We've got a new general manager coming. Do you think there'll be some impact of a new person at the head of the organisation on this document?
Well, as I stated in my initial remarks, it is an opportunity for renewed leadership, but it is only an opportunity and we have to select the right person. And how we select the right person and how we gauge their commitment to community participation and what they bring to the table regarding community participation is an unknown, but vital. We need to get that right, as we need to get this document right so that we can move forward together.
Thank you. Were there other questions? Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Appreciate your time that you've spent. I just wanted to talk to you about the surveys. And you mentioned public participation or putting it out to the public. Can you just describe that a bit more for me so I understand?
Well,
Please?
rather than the questions being made up by either a consultant or a member of the council team, that the public write the questions that they would like everyone to answer. And that we put that then on public exhibition and people can decide which questions they think should be in the survey, perhaps. I don't know, we don't want to make too big a complex a step of this, but if we're going to engage with the community, let's engage with the community. Let's not pretend we engage with them and have, like 400 people be what we base the entire base plan on. We need to do better.
Thank you. Councillor Bain.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Kay. This plan is going out on exhibition, so I would, my question would be, what kind of detail will you be putting into your submission, to be considered? Because remembering that this plan is only a draft, I'm hearing that you've got some really good ideas. But we need to be really focused on what we're going to change. And if that's going to be a fundamental change, what sort of ideas will you be putting into any submission that you make?
Well, my ideas would include that we remove impediments to public engagement. So that would be adjusting the rules of the public forum so that members of the public can have a two-way conversation. If we are going to exhibit that document and put in submissions, surely we could have a forum where we can thrash out amongst ourselves what the community actually think about it. As much as I'm passionate about this and I put an enormous amount of my time and energy into it, I'm not the only person who needs to have a voice here. And I think it's a bit unfair in some regards to put the whole onus onto me when I have very limited resources. But I will do my best to put in a submission.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Councillor Wyatt.
Thank you. My question was very similar. I've been in this seat for half a term, full term, and this term, and community engagement is exceptionally difficult. And last IPNR suite of documents, we had 10 submissions, 10. And we've had different methods. And I would really encourage you and people that you talk to put that on the table and tell us what works, because not really sure what's working. Apart from door knocking 14,000 people, what is not what can council and councillors do better? Because it's exceptionally difficult, and I agree with you there. So I would hope, please put in a suggestion and your suggestion. Yeah.
So Mr. Kay, what would you do better?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a question. Is that your question?
Yeah. What can we do better?
Remove remove the impediments, like I said. I think it would be great if all of the councillors used all of the public forums that they have, the public social media, the press as much as you can, and have a big, let's have a say. Let's have a say in this document. Be specific and make it personal. Get passionate about it. Let's get real.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious about the impediments too. We did that, and I remember that we went to the SRV meeting here whenever it was recently. There was 2 members of the public and 8 councillors, and that was in Kempsey. That was fully advertised, trying to get people to come in to have their say about the SRV. And you mentioned an impediment, rules of the public forum, which I also agree with. What other impediments are there to engaging with 14,000 people across a landscape that goes from the mountains to the sea, north, south, rural, urban?
Mr. Kay.
In the very documents that I've been speaking to, have a look at the IP2 process. There's 10 pages of detail there. Your average person in the street neither has the time nor the motivation to dig their head under that level of detail. And if this is used as the prerequisite for you to have a voice, then you can see why people don't have a voice. It's all too hard. And it is deliberately, in my opinion, made too hard. It needs to be made easy, and there needs to be forums whereby people can quickly and easily address things. I mean, just the timing of this public forum. If you've got a proper day job, you can't come. And now this was originally, I'm told, done because dairy farmers, it is the meetings of the council, because dairy farmers couldn't make an after hours agenda, and that's fine. You know, I accept that. Good on them. But these are historic impediments. We need to get rid of them.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Councillor Coburn.
Just another question around, that community participation. I know it is an area that council are putting a lot of effort into, and we can all agree that, we're very open for there to be a change in that space. When council comes out to the public, for example, and they set up meetings, they make themselves available for members of the public to meet with them to discuss some of these topics. How can we get more people to attend those? Because from my experience, we have very, very low numbers of people who turn up. Now, I do understand what you're talking about the working hours, but again, it's a two-way street. I guess council has to obviously be available to come out as well. For even some of the councillors, that's difficult for them to attend. Do you have any thoughts on that at all, Mr. Kay?
At the risk of being crude, there's an element of whipped dog syndrome here. People have not been heard and have not been listened to and have not been heeded for so long in this valley that if you go to your average person, they will agree with that big sign I had that said they don't listen. I was down at Riverside Park early in the SRV process and I heckled, they don't listen, and I got the biggest round of applause of anyone there. Any of the speakers who actually had a microphone. This is a very common sentiment in the valley. We need to overcome that. I suggested a couple of ways. Public apologies. What's it cost you? We've gotten it wrong in the past, but this is the new dynamic, bright council. Let's get it right. I'm here now. This is new. This is not old. This is the new way. And we're going to listen. The timing, the hours, if you want to get the community involved, it has to be out of hours. Perhaps, though, more engagement with the schools. They're going to be old enough to vote soon. They live in the valley. Their opinions count.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Lindsay. I just had a quick question around, you talk about the surveys and stuff. Have you heard of the EMIC and EDIC approach? So we had a bit of a email chain back and forth and stuff with some of the community members who would voice this similar, what you're bringing to the public forum today. And so, yeah, I just wanted to ask you if you had heard of it, because it gives you the different approaches in terms of what you take with surveys. So it sounds like you're sort of wanting to have that more EMIC approach. So with the deep understanding of community members and, listening to what they've got to say more instead of the EDIC approach.
I honestly don't know what that means, so I can't really give you an informed answer. But I do know that the survey questions as they stand aren't fit for purpose, and you're getting the results that you deserve with the questions you ask.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Councillor Selby.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Lindsay, thank you. What are your thoughts on being able to ask questions at the forum? Do you think that that would improve things and we get more people here throwing stuff at us?
It can only help. Opening up the forums to items that aren't on the agenda, also important. Just letting people have a say, taking it on board. You don't have to do it. These documents go to extreme lengths to point out that even if it's a majority view in the Shire, the council isn't obligated to follow them, and that's fine. You're here to manage an enterprise. We don't want to get in the way of you managing the enterprise, but if this is the document that we are going to refer back every time we make a plan, it needs to be the best one we can possibly produce.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. I think that is all done for questions. Thank you for your presentation. We'll now have Mr. Graham Carrard, who will speak for item 10.2 draft flood policy.
Madam Mayor, councillors, members of the public, I'd like to, and council staff, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk today. With regard to the draft flood policy, I'd like to commend council staff on the nature of the policy, where it takes into account the effects of climate change in formulating a strategy for planning for future floods. This acceptance of climate change being a real influencer with no softening of its name to pander to those who might dispute the validity of a phenomenon that over 97% of climate scientists agree on as the overall effects of human-induced global warming is heartening. It is a responsible application of council's duty of care to residents and the environment to use the accepted scientific term to avoid ambiguity and plan for a future that does not lumber upcoming generations with problems due to lack of foresight or acceptance of the best available information. We see this now with the ill will from the community over rate rises due to strategies taken previously, and I'm sorry this cohort of councillors has to bear the brunt of that. With a flood policy as presented here, I feel confident this will be one area that will serve the community and environment in a most successful fashion. Even those who can't accept the overwhelming scientific evidence of climate change will surely see that an insurance policy for future generations is better than doing things as they have always been done. The objective stated in this draft, and I quote, use ecologically sustainable methods of flood protection wherever possible, is yet another pointer to an adaptable and forward-thinking council that will serve the community well. Paying attention to the updates of modelling and making allowances where these are not available reinforces my optimism. I thank council for their efforts.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Pakes.
Page 1 of the document. Thanks for your response today. Page 1 of the document. What do you think of the picture on the front of the document?
I have no comment on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Pakes.
So supplementary to that, are you aware of what that picture represents?
Nope.
Okay.
I'd have to look at the picture, but I'll go back and look.
And further supplementary to that, do you think that is representative of the document? I suppose the picture, does the picture represent the document? That's my only
comment.
It's a picture of the 1949 flood, I believe.
Kempsey post the 1949 flood, pre-mitigation. So it's a picture of a time and a flood that probably doesn't represent the current hydraulic situation. I'd go through the relevant staff member to confirm that, but yeah, that's my question.
Are you asking for an answer? I don't.
You're not obliged to answer if you don't want to, Mr. Carrard.
I don't think I can give a considered answer to that. Sorry.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? No, thank you for your presentation. We'll now move to Louise Langley, who will speak for item 11.2, notice the motion Dungutty Thungutty Advisory Group.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon.
Do you just want to bring them? Yeah, awesome.
My name is Louise Langley. I'm the acting CEO of the Aboriginal Land Council in Kempsey. I'm sorry if I'm going to speak fast because I didn't realise I had 5. I thought I had 10 minutes. I've been in Aboriginal politics for 20 years. I've also been the recipient of awards from the Department of Industry and Institute of Management. I'm a chartered manager and I hold a graduate certificate in business management. My mother was a Gulladjung mob. I tell you this because for too many or some in this room, there may have been associations with Aboriginal people that we are either uneducated or undereducated or overrepresented in courts across the country. I find that times like today are where we are once again having to talk about the benefits of Aboriginal inclusion in basic local governance on Aboriginal lands. I also believe that statistics talk louder to those who need it most. At this time, I would like to pay my respects to the Ngungurri people and their lands and traditions on which I today stand. I don't do this to acknowledge it as a platitude, nor as a well-worn road by some non-Aboriginal communities to fulfil a random set of KPIs. I do this because I understand that this land is under the care of another. And whilst I'm visiting, I will ask those who live on this land and who are intimately connected to this land if my plans or ideas are suitable to be rolled out here. Do they have to be amended in any way to represent the cultural aspects that are different from my own? Are there no-go zones that I need to be aware of? And what direction would we like to move in? You see, Aboriginal local Aboriginal land councils already have an Aboriginal consultative committee open to anyone who wants to become a member of our land council. We draft a community land and business plan and then consult with the members, the elders and others about the business of the LAUC moving forward in the next 5 years. The LAUC also consults on environmental areas, and we now have a cultural restoration strategy. So if having Aboriginal cultural consultation is imperative to us, then at a minimum, it should be imperative to the local council. So here are the statistics. In Kempsey in 2021, based on census data, 3,959 of the citizens of Kempsey area are Aboriginal. So that's 12.9%. 6.8% of Aboriginal people are university or TAFE educated, and 17.13% own homes. Consider this. Aboriginal people could not own land until the late 20th century. Therefore, generational wealth could not be passed on to children. In fact, based on the statistics in 50 years, Aboriginal people have owned homes in Kempsey faster than the general population over the last 150 years. And before those in the room think that Aboriginal people get given homes, that's absolutely false. Aboriginal people earn homes and pay them off just like everybody else. The only difference is that the federal government allowed Aboriginal people to borrow money for homes at the same standard interest rates as the general population because the number of banks and credit unions in the past did not approve home loans for Aboriginal people. So the government stepped in. Why is this important? Well, because all those people also pay their rates. They pay wages, they pay the council to meet, just like every other ratepayer. Council has 348 staff members, are 12.9% Aboriginal people. To do the math for you, that's 45 staff members that would need to be Aboriginal to truly reflect the population of Kempsey. Aboriginal people have much to offer. The culture is rich and old, and if used respectfully and in conjunction with Aboriginal people, can be used to enhance the Kempsey area. There are many benefits to council. Empowering the Aboriginal population to make decisions that affect them is a great benefit to council, improving outcomes for services and programs offered by council so ongoing funding can be maintained and better data can be collected. Recognising Aboriginal culture as systemic to the council allows for council and Aboriginal people to work together to create tourism and tourism ventures, employing more people who build more houses who pay more rates, more accommodation fees, more restaurants, etc. It opens up communication so that if a major obstacle occurs for Kempsey Shire Council, they have a mechanism to risk mitigate that obstacle. like a multi-million-dollar grant coming up that requires formalised pre-planning of cultural tourism, for example.
Sorry, Ms. Langley.
It's okay.
Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Bain.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Langley. My question would be specifically about a First Nations advisory group and how that can contribute to improve. How did you feel this could contribute to improving our community?
Well, that was part of my speech that I didn't get time to say. When we have an inclusive society, we all benefit. It's the wealth of knowledge and the input that Aboriginal people can have to all matters relating to council could drive income producing assets into the council at unprecedented rates. If you look at councils up and down the coast of Australia that embrace Aboriginal culture, a lot of them have exceeded their budgets in terms of income from joint ventures, supporting partnerships in the community so that Aboriginal people can have better businesses, tourism. So in that way, having the Aboriginal Cultural Consultative Committee is one step towards council being able to increase their income.
Councillors, do we have any more questions? Councillor Pakes.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm probably an extension to that question. Outside of council, what may be some of the external unknown benefits that might come in cohesion with other groups not specifically linked? I don't know. Is there any other external benefits that we may not have thought about that you have?
What I would like to say is that if we look at humans as we're all one species, then we are only as good as the person who is the lowest in our sector. So if we're talking about Kempsey Shire Council, if we bring everybody else up, then we're all better for it. It's based on the same principle in terms of if we have a crime problem in Kempsey, I'm not saying that that's an Aboriginal crime problem, but I'm saying that the Aboriginal people, because of the traumas that they've had for years and years, and because of the way that we've had to live, we might have better answers for that for you. But if you don't ask us, we can't tell you. So that's just one example of many, many that we could contribute to that conversation and make. And in 12 months, you might be able to turn around and actually say, that was the best thing we did.
Councillor Pakes.
Just so, if let's look into the crystal ball, the groups formed. How many meetings do you think is required until we could say, hey, we've got something done? Now, I would suggest 8. What do you think?
That was also in my speech. I think we've got to be really sit down and be intentional about the way that the meeting happens, because if we put a non-Indigenous way to meet on top of an Indigenous consultative committee, you're not going to get the best results. So I would suggest that you have some kind of forum where we come up with a method that we could use and that they could meet. And if we did that, we could aim at potentially seeing really good results in less than 8. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Wyatt.
Yes, please. So in writing this notice of motion in collaboration with my wonderful colleague over here, Councillor Lawrence, we did some research and looked into how many council groups within our OLG group 4 had some type of consultative committee advisory group or something like that, and we found 23%. In your role as with the Land Council, do you know how many in New South Wales local governments would have some type of consultative committee of council?
Microphone, please.
I do not have those numbers. I will say that they do exist, certainly, and I would look for more alternative councils or younger councils to get some kind of feedback on how that's working for them.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. I, as I said, we only did the 4.
Do we have any further questions? Councillor Pakes?
Yep. Last one. The chair of this group. Have you got any thoughts on the type of person who might be a good person to be the chair? Can I ask that question through you, Madam Mayor? Is that all right?
Yes, but you don't have to answer if you don't wish to.
So again, I'm going to go to the Aboriginal fullback here.
Sorry, can I just jump in? I have a suggestion of my own, but I'm not going to say it yet.
Yeah, right. I'm going to go to what my elders have taught me, and that is that we all get in a room and we decide together who leads something. And that's how it's been forever, and that's how it probably should be now, regardless of whether it's a council committee or not. I think if we stick with that, we will get better outcomes in the long run.
Thank you, Ms Langley. Do we have any further questions? Councillor Lawrence.
I just wanted to say thank you, Louise, for coming and speaking today and giving your speech to my fellow councillors, and thank you.
You're welcome. I wish I knew it was 5 minutes and not 10, but never mind.
That's okay. Thank you for speaking. We'll now have Teresa Case, who will speak for the same item.
Good afternoon, Mayor, councillors and community members. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge the Dunghutti people, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I acknowledge the strength and resilience of First Nations people and their ongoing contributions to this region. My name is Teresa Case, and I stand here today as a non-Indigenous person living on Dunghutti land. I have always been aware that I live and work on Aboriginal land, and I believe it is essential that First Nations people have a real and respected role in advising on the decisions that affect them. Kempsey has a strong and proud First Nations community. Yet, there is no formal structure to ensure their voices are embedded in council decisions. This is despite the fact that there was once a First Nations advisory group here. So for nearly 2 decades, the people with the most knowledge, experience and connection to this country have had no direct advisory role to council. This is not just about representation. It is about respect. It is about responsibility. It's about doing what is right. First Nations people must be the ones advising on Indigenous affairs, not only because they are best placed to do so, but it is their right to be heard. Just last week, an event in our region raised serious concerns about whether Aboriginal voices are truly being included in public discussion. Allegations have surfaced that members of the Dunghutti community were unable to enter a local venue where a political discussion was taking place, an event that was promoted as an opportunity for engagement. While the full details are still emerging, the very fact that such allegations exist highlights a broader issue. When there are few formal, structured avenues for Aboriginal people to participate in decision-making and advisory, exclusion, whether intentional or not, can occur. We cannot ignore the disadvantages and barriers that First Nations people continue to face. Inequalities that contribute to social challenges, including economic exclusion, racial tensions, and poorer health outcomes. But rather than allowing these divisions to persist, reinstating the First Nations Advisory Committee would create a pathway for real solutions. Solutions built on lived experience, cultural knowledge, and community leadership. This is not just about Aboriginal people, it is about all of us. The entire Kempsey community stands to benefit from cultural heritage protection, ensuring we honour and preserve our shared history, land and environment management, drawing on generations of knowledge about caring for country, cultural tourism initiatives, boosting Kempsey's economy and identity, stronger social cohesion, bringing communities together through mutual respect and understanding. This is not about giving special treatment. It's about correcting an imbalance. First Nations people should not have to fight for a seat at the table when it comes to decisions about their own land, culture, and future. Mayor, elected members, as leaders in this community, you have the opportunity, I did write today, but I believe it's tomorrow, to reinstate a mechanism that should never have been lost. I strongly urge you to pass this motion and show that Kempsey is a community that listens, respects, and moves forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Case. Do we have any questions? Councillor Pakes.
Thank you for your presentation. So let's step forward a week, and this has been approved. What do you think, if you were a member of that group, would be the top 3 topics you would want to discuss regarding our community?
I'm not an Aboriginal person. And I don't feel qualified to answer that question.
You're perfectly at liberty to not answer that, Ms. Case. Councillor Pakes, do you have another question?
Can someone answer in proxy for me?
No, can I supplementary? I believe this has got benefit for the entire community, not just Indigenous people. Yeah, so that's why I asked the question. I think it's absolutely for everyone. I don't think it's for just Indigenous people because, yeah, I just think there's more benefit there. That's why I asked that question. So,
Okay.
Question there, Councillor Pakes. Councillor Wyatt.
I just wanted to thank you for that presentation. I couldn't have said that better if I tried. Can I borrow that for tomorrow night? Thank you very much for that. It was really fantastic presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a question there, Councillor Wyatt?
Are you glad you came? Thank you.
Do we have any more questions, councillors?
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Yep. Were you going to say, Councillor Lawrence, or I was waiting for it?
Lawrence.
Thank you. No, I just want to say thank you, Therese, for coming to present today. Yeah, your words, were amazing, and thank you so much. Can I ask another councillor a question, or can we just ask? Because you mentioned, Therese, about reinstating it, because you said when the last advisory committee was it 2000s, or is that when it finished?
From what I could research was 2000s, but I don't have an exact on or a fact on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Case.
I just wanted to see if I could ask another councillor a question. Is that okay?
That's not within the tomorrow.
Tomorrow we
tomorrow
can do
you
that?
may, but no, you can't right now.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
we have any more questions? Thank you, Ms. Case.
Thank you.
That is the end of our speaking. So I now declare the public forum closed. Thank you for your attendance, and thank you to our speakers for making the time.